All right, hello. Welcome to yesterlore. This is a very special yesterlore, in fact, because it is going to be the last yesterlore for some time, as I need to be on a hiatus from yesterlore for some time. I do not know how long the hiatus will last, but it will be for a span of time. That will not mean that streams will stop. I will still be doing Saturday streams moving forward. But Friday streams, yesterlore will be on an indefinite hiatus until they start back up again. So keep an eye out for those. But in the meantime, there will be lots of Saturday streams and maybe the odd random stream in between. We shall see. But it is also a special stream because we are going to attempt to finish Sir Gawain and the Green Knight tonight. Now, we are still in Fit 3. We're close to the end of Fit 3. But in order to finish the story today, we are not going to read every stanza, as we have been thus far reading every stanza. We are going to skim the rest of it. We are going to read the first, next stanza after last time, because it is an interesting stanza. But I'll kind of skim the rest and kind of explain what happens. And I will periodically stop to read bits and pieces as we go. And then, hopefully, there will be some time after we get to the end, because we're not going to read that much of the rest of the poem. I do recommend you look into it and read the rest of it, because it's very good. The Fit 4 especially is very good. But I will hopefully have some time after finishing to talk about different ideas that we've come across in the poem, and hopefully get maybe some feedback from people in the chat who also have been following along, or not. Either way, I'm open to feedback and excited to see what people think. If you're watching this in the distant future or near future on YouTube, I still want to hear what you think. Leave a comment below. So, what we will be doing first, I'm going to give sort of as quick as possible a recap of where we've been and where we are at in the story right now. So, almost a year ago, it was New Year's Eve in King Arthur's court, and a Green Knight comes in. He's all green and decked out, and we get a long description of how awesome he looks. And King Arthur and Queen Guinevere on the dais, shocked, and everyone's shocked. And the Green Knight challenges Arthur and his court to a game. He hasn't brought any weapons except for an axe, and he says, "The game is simple. You strike my neck with a blow with my axe, and then in a year and a day, I will do the same to you." And Sir Gawain picks up the challenge. He takes it up, and he picks up the axe and chops the Green Knight's head off. The Green Knight proceeds to pick it up, pick up his head, and say from his head, "All right, meet me at the Green Chapel on the Green Hill in a year and a day, and then it's your turn to have your neck struck with a axe." Anniversary plans. Yeah, very powerful anniversary plans. Also, I'm noticing, that your name is coming up as green. That's very thematic for the poem today. I don't know if that's in response to the color of my screen or not. I don't know how Twitch stream chat decides what color your name will be. I don't know if that's something you pick. I'm still, even after a year of streaming, I still feel very new to Twitch because I don't use it as a viewer very often. So, yes, anniversary plans. So, Gawain waits almost a year before he leaves. He waits until the next fall to go and seek out this Green Chapel. I asked Mr. Twitch to make me fit the aesthetic. Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Twitch. So, almost a year later, he finally goes out, has a bunch of adventures we barely get any description of. He fights monsters, all sorts of kinds of creatures, lots of encounters we don't get because that's not what the poem's about. What we get is that he is ragged and beaten and tired, and it's almost Christmas, and he sees, he's in the woods, and he prays to the Virgin Mary and to Jesus, and I'm forgetting what saint it was specifically that he prayed to. Notably, there's a Virgin Mary in the inside of his shield, so he looks at it for moral support. And he prays, and then, bam, he sees a sort of castle in the woods, a manor in the woods. And he goes in, and he's greeted very warmly. Everyone loves him there. There's the host, who's pretty cool. He's the lord of the house, and he has a very gorgeous lady. We get a lot of description of what everyone's wearing, because this poet is very much in the vein of the My Immortal author in terms of how much he likes to describe people's clothes. Then we get a party, and they celebrate Christmas Eve and Christmas together, and it comes to the point where there's 3 days until Gawain's day where he has to go out and find the... do we know it's not the same author? Oh, as My Immortal? I mean, if the author is immortal, which I've never seen posited before, but if the author is immortal, then potentially. There is a thought that the author of this poem is the same author of the poem Pearl, which is another Middle English poem. There is some thought that these are the same person. We don't have the name of this poet, but there's a lot of the style and spelling choices seem similar. Writing a thesis on this ASAP? Yes, please. There you can find some evidence. Like already, there's like the over attention to detailed clothing choices. There's the inconsistent spelling as well. So next, it's almost time to go. It's really like 3 days from New Year's. So Gawain's like, oh no, I need to find this green chapel. Have you heard of it? Do you know where it is? I'm going to have to leave tomorrow and go find it. And the host and the lady are like, we don't want you to go. Stay with us. And by the way, we actually know where it is. You're actually like not very far from it. It's like less than a day's ride away from this place. So you're actually pretty close, which means you can relax and stay here for the next few days. But let's make it fun. Let's make it a game. The Lord says, I will go out for the next 3 days and go hunting. And you just stay put. Just stay in the house and relax so that you're prepared for your challenge. Don't get up, don't do anything, stay in bed. A very notably, like, against knightly code thing to do is to stay in bed and be lazy. That's like a sin. It's not something that manly men do. So it's a very strange request from this lord for him to just stay put. And the Lord is going to he's going to go hunting, and he will bring back Gawain anything that he gets. Whatever he gets on his hunt, he will bring it back and give it to Gawain. And Gawain has to give back anything he gets to the Lord. Anything he receives. So, the first night of this happening, or the first day of this happening, the Lord goes out and hunts a deer, and brings back the deer. And while he's out hunting the deer, we get a lot of description of that too. This poet also loves describing hunting scenes in vivid description. We glossed through some of that because it could get gory in parts, but pretty gruesome stuff. And he brings it back the deer. While he's out there, Gawain wakes up in bed, and the lady snuck in to his room. And the lady's like, hey, my lord's gone, and the maids are asleep. Let's, make use of this time. And Gawain's like, no, that is very wrong for me to do. A, that's cheating on your husband, no. And he is a good man, why would I do that? And B, it's just in general wrong. I don't find you unattractive, you're very hot, but no. We do get a lot of confirmation that Gawain does find her attractive. Because we also get long descriptions of how beautiful she is as well. And she hangs out with this old lady who also lives in the house. And a lot of respect is given to this old lady, but we do hear that this old lady is not beautiful. So that's a fun contrast there that we get in the poem. It's a sin to be so cozy in bed. Hate and war on earth. Yeah, it is hate and war on earth. That it's a sin to be so cozy in bed. It's sad. So he refuses the lady. He's like, we're not going to have any activities other than talking platonically in this room. Thank you very much. And she does hang out with him, and give him lots of praise. She does question if he's really Gawain. He's like, are you a real man? Are you really Gawain if you don't want to have a fun time with me? Lots of gross pressuring that happens there. And he does give her a platonic knightly kiss. It's all very chaste. It's okay to give a kiss to your lady you've sworn to as a knight. That's his sort of excuse around that. The Lord comes home, brings him the venison. He gets the venison, he says thank you, and then he grabs the Lord on the back of the neck and gives him a very passionate kiss. Interesting. So, next day, same thing happens, but this time, the Lord goes out and hunts a boar, and it's kind of like a face, like one-on-one battle between the Lord and the boar. He brings out men to hunt with him on all of these expeditions, and in the first one, they were all kind of chasing the deer. This time, though, he's out hunting with his men, but it's a clash between him and the boar, and he wins. So, meanwhile, Gawain is in his room, and same thing happens again. The queen comes in, or not the queen, the lady comes in, and she starts, again, pressuring him to have do some activities together that he does not, he says he does not want to do it, he just will not because it's the wrong thing to do, and etc. So even though he's committing the sin of sloth, I guess, by staying there, even though he was told to do it, he will not commit that transgression. He will not do that. But she does manage to get 2 kisses out of him this time. And the Lord comes back, gives him the boar, and he gives 2 passionate kisses to the Lord after he comes back. And the Lord says nothing about these kisses. He's just like, okay, cool. He just enjoys the kisses. Doesn't make any comment about it. 3rd day. We are on the 3rd day now. We got a long description of the Lord hunting a fox, and the fox is like outwitting him and his men as they turn. It's a really long pursuit of this fox, but eventually they do get the fox. And the fox is referenced as Reynard, which is a sort of vague reference to this whole other cinematic universe, I guess. This whole other, like, poetic folk universe of the canon of Reynard the Fox, which is a very popular thing on the continent in Europe during this time. And it's sort of slowly seeping into England as a influence. It's like originally a Flemish kind of thing, but it's a story that gets so popular that the word for fox in French changes and becomes renard, named after this character. So the fox gets called that, and it's just a fun little reference. But he gets the fox. Meanwhile, we are in Gawain's bedchamber again. Lady's in there, trying her luck again. And he says, no. They have kissed thrice, I think, at this point. If they haven't kissed thrice, they will ultimately have kissed thrice at the end of this exchange. I don't remember the order exactly. But she has asked him for a token, like a memory token, because he's going to leave the next day. This is the last day that he's going to stay there. And he says, I don't have anything worth giving, honestly. Like, all I brought was my, like, travel gear, my weapons, etc. And so she says, okay. This is what she says next. Ho rachtim a riche rink of red golde werkes, with a starande stone ståndande alofte. Okay, this isn't actually what she's saying, but this is what happens. She's about to talk. That bere blushande bemes as the bricht sunna. Wit ye well, hit what's worth well full hove, but the rank hit renide, and readily he sighed. Okay, now he's speaking. I will no giftes for gode mi guy at this time. I have known yo to norna ne nocht willi taka. Ho bede him hit full busily and he her bode wernes, and sweara swiftel his solva that he hit seze nolda, and ho sora that he forsoka and sida thereafter. If ye renai mi rink to richa for hit sames, ye wolde not so higly halden be to me. I shall gifjo mi girdel that gaines jo lasse. Ho lachta lasse lichtli that leke umbe her sides. Knit upon her kirtel under the klare mantel. Gered hit wats with grene silke and with golde shaped. Nocht but aronde breiden beten with fingers, and that'll bede to the borna and blithely besocht. Thach hit unworthy where that he hit taka wolde, and he naifat he nolde nege in no wiese, nother golde negarison god him gras sende, to achieve to the chance that he had chosen there, and therefore I pray you displease you not, and let us be your business, for I bythe you never to grant. I am dearly to you beholder, because of your semblant, and ever in hot and cold, to be your true servant. Okay, so she's given him, or she's offered him, a ring, a golden ring, with, it's like called red gold. Gold is called red a lot in medieval manuscripts, and some people think it's just that red kind of occupies a more broad category of just like warm colors a lot of the time in earlier English. But it can also specifically be red. But when things are like really bright and also a warm color, they often get called red, even if they're not like the shade red. But she offers him a ring, and he says, I'm not going to take any gifts from you. I refuse. Thanks for the offer, but I can't give you anything back, so no thanks. And she says, if you won't take this, okay, I'm going to give you something else. And she gives him her girdle. She takes off her girdle, and it's green. Interesting. And has gold embroidery on it. Again, interesting. So she gives it to him, and he, and she's like, please take this. And Gawain thanks her. So, I'm going to skip the next stanza. We're not going to read all of this, but he tries to refuse it, and they sort of fight over this, and he eventually accepts it. There's the 3 kisses and the girdle that he receives. Okay, so keep track of that. He's received 3 kisses today and the girdle that she's given him. She tells him that this girdle will keep him from death. Like, if anyone tries to slay him, it's sort of like a shield, like a magical shield that will protect him from any harm. And that's an interesting gift given where he's headed tomorrow, right? So the day goes on. We get the Lord comes back with a fox, and he offers it to Sir Gawain. He's like, look at this fox I found. And Gawain's like, okay, cool. Here's what I got. And he gives him 3 passionate kisses. And that's it. So what hasn't he given him? He has not given him the girdle. Notably, that is something he received, and he is not giving it to the Lord. So he is kind of broken. He's lost their game. He's broken the wager, etc. Bad luck for Gawain. Then he goes to chapel and, confesses to the Lord and prays for health and his safety, on his adventure. And that is what happens in Fit 3. Fit 4 begins here. Fit 4 is the shortest section. He wakes up the next day. He prays again. It's New Year's Day, and it's time for him to go and fight, or not fight, but have his neck hitting with axe appointment. And on his way out, the door warden of the, mansion tells him no one comes back from seeing the Green Knight. You could just go home, right? You could just leave. No one would know. I won't tell anyone that you went the other direction and went back to Camelot. That's, my lips are sealed. You don't have to die. And Gawain says, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep to my word. And this guy's basically like, this is a fool's errand. What are you doing? Don't. And Sir Gawain's like, nope, I'm going to do it. Okay, so he goes. Gringolet, if you're seeing this, is his horse. If you read the English version, that's who Gringolet is. It's just the name of his horse. If you were here for the story of Arthur at the Town Watheling, where it was about Sir Gawain and him versus Galeron of Galloway, and there was that whole fight, and the poor horse was slain, and how much it hurt Gawain. There's a strong relationship between Gawain and his horse. Their names even alliterate. So, at least in this story, the horse is all safe and good. No horses were harmed in this chapter of the story. So, he prays some more in the next stanza. We're not going to read that one. And then he has trouble finding the Green Chapel. The Lord of the mansion did tell him that it was going to be, a really easy trip to find him, and they're not very far. But Sir Gawain is having trouble. But then he sees a weird-looking hill. He's like, that's spooky and strange. Must be it. Because, of course, the Lord is spooky and strange, right? I'm trying to see what part I wanted to stop at again. That's why I'm kind of slowing down a bit. I had a section I meant to read, but I forgot to write the line numbers of the section. So, that's what I am lost. Alright. Yeah. I'm further back than I thought I was. Yeah, no, I have to keep going to find the part where he finds the Green Chapel. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, there we go. So it's this stanza. Alright. He finds the Green Chapel. Yay! He can have his appointment now. Let me just double check this is the right one. Okay. So yeah, we will read this stanza. Fennes teknik kan kalleful hier ho stitles in this sted med steven to holde. For no is gode Gawain gåande richt here. If any wia ocht will winna hider fast. Other no, other never his nedes to spede. Abide quoth on the bonke above and over his head. And thou shall have all in hast that I the hicht honest. Yet he rushed on that rurde rapely a thrower, and with quetting a wharf he wolde licht. And sithen he keveris be a kraga and commerce of a holle. Whirlande out of a row with a fellow weapon, a Dennis axe, nieuwe dicht, the dint without yelde. A borrelich bitter bende bitter halma, filled in a filler fore foot a large. It was no lasse be that lasse, that lemed fullbricht. So it's tongue twist, the lasse be that lasse. Two different words for lasse. And the goma in the grene, get it at first. Both of the lira and the leges locus and berde. Savet it fire on his foot he found this on the earth. Sette the stella to the stona and stalked beside when he won to the water there he waded nolda. He hipped over on his axe and orpedly strides. Bremeli broth on a bent that brode was about on snawa. Sir Gawain the knicht kon mette. He ne lute him nothing lower. That other side no sir sweater of Steven mon my the thrower. So, Gawain calls out and is like, who's here? And eventually he finds that it's the Green Knight sharpening his Danish axe. That's his Danish axe. His Danish axe. And yeah, he says, the knight says to him, no sir sweta of Steven mon my thro. Yeah. He calls him Sweta. We're gonna maybe understand why he calls him Swete here. That's the sweet. Here you see it's translated now, my sweet. The tris thou keepest I tread. This is an interesting way to translate it. Very archaic. It's like, you're gonna keep your word, right? Steven means like voice, but it can also refer to what you said. So, May you be true. May you troa, trust. May someone trust your words. Are you a trustworthy man? Like, are you going to keep to your promises? Basically what he's asking here. But he calls him Sweta, which is, I think, kind of cute. For a man who got his head chopped off a year ago and is now about to hit Gawain's neck with an axe. So, let's continue. I think the Sweta is going to make more sense soon. So, Gawain quoth that grena goma gold de mot loka. I wis thou art welcome. Wia to me plasam. And thou hadst timid be travail, as true man shoulda, and thou knowest the covenantus kest us betweena. This is kest us, like us, betweena. At this tema, 12 months thou toka that they fallet, and I shoulda at this new year yeple they huita. And we are in this valley verily uraona. Here are no rankes us torrida, rela as us likes. Half the helm of the header and half here the pie. Busk no more debate than the bede thena, when so whipped of me header, at a wap ona. Nigh be God, quoth Gawain. That me gos lante, I shall gruch the no grua, for grem that falles. But stittle the upon on stock, and I shall stand stille, and warp the no warning to watch as the leakes, no whara. He leaned with the neck and luta, and she with that sheer albara, and letta as he nocht dutta, for a dread he wold not dara. So, Gawain, so the knight's like, hey, it's you, yay! So we're gonna do this now, right? He reminds him of what happened a year ago, a 12-month ago. I love this term, a 12-month ago. The word year exists, but why not say it in a funny way, right? And so it's time, and Gawain's like, yep, I'm not gonna fail this. I'm not gonna squirm, and I'm not gonna be scared. I'm gonna put my head on this stone, and you're gonna strike it. And he does it. He bows down, lutta. He bows, and he's ready. He's trying his best not to be scared. He's doing his best. He's a brave knight. Okay, so we're not going to read this next one. I'm going to summarize it. So the Green Knight gets ready, and he raises his axe, and Gawain flinches a little bit. Oh no, Gawain flinched. This is a huge deal. What happened to the brave knight? The knight is like, you're not Gawain. Gawain was brave a year ago when I met him, and he's not. Yeah, such cowardice of that knecht kotha I never heard. I never heard, like, I didn't see such cowardice. I never knew of such cowardice from that guy. He was such a brave guy. He picked up my axe and chopped my head off with no problem. Now you're like flinching. What is this? Who are you? You're not Gawain. And Gawain's like, no, it's me. I'm sorry. Like, my bad. I flinched. Go again. Okay, like, do over. Let's try again. So the knight, okay, he lifts his axe again. He's like, please, just do it. Just bring it down. I think we might read this one, actually. Let me check if I want to read this one. No, I don't think this is the one I wanted to read. Yeah. So, this time, the knight brings his axe down, and Gawain doesn't flinch. Yeah, he doesn't flinch. But the knight stops. This time the knight holds his axe. And the knight's like, wow, you didn't flinch that time. He's kind of testing him this second time. You didn't flinch. Go you. All right. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, I'm going to read this one. This is the last stroke. He lifted lightly his loma and let it down fire. With the barb of the bitter be the bare neck. Thach he homered heartily hurt him no more, but sneered him on that on sida that severed the hide. The sharp shank of the flesh through the sheer grace, that he shed blood over his shoulders, shot to the earth, and when the borna say the blood blank on the snawa, he sprit forth spenne fote, more than a spare length. Hence hetterly his helm on his head cast. Shot at his shoulders his fire shelde under. Brides out a bricht sword, and bremle his spekas. Never seen that he was born bona of his mother, what he never in this world weake, half so blida, blinne borna of the bor beda, me no more. He have a stroke in his stead, without strife hent, and if thou reaches me any more, he readily shall wheat, and yelde yederly I rein, and therto ye trist, and foe, but on stroke her me falles. The covenant shop richt, so fermed in Arthur's halles, and therefore hende no hope. Okay, so what happened? One thing I forgot to mention before, part of the reason he has so much trouble finding the Green Chapel, on top of it just being, kind of mystical, magical, and like you can't find it in a normal way. You have to be lost for you to find it. At least that's how I interpret it, being supposedly easy to find, but him not finding it. The other thing is, it's New Year's in England, so, or at least in Britain. I can't remember where specifically we are physically right now, but we're in Britain, and it's New Year's, so it's snowy right now. And this time period, it would have been snowy. So there's snow around, and that's also probably why it was hard to find the Green Hill. Like, most of the hills are green already, but in the wintertime, it's even harder to tell because it's snowy everywhere. The weather's not his friend right now. But what happened? So, the knight lets his axe fall, and he hits him on the neck. But he doesn't chop his head off. It just barely nicks him. It just barely nicks him on the neck. He didn't actually get his head chopped off. Yay! Gawain's not dead. So Gawain's like, oh, that's it. Like, you did your blow, and we're even now. Like, so he pulls his sword out, and he's like, okay, let's do this for real now. Let's fight. As a knight, I guess, should challenge someone who just hit him on the neck with an axe, even though it was part of the wager. Strange. But he's like, yeah, let's go. Let's fight. And the Green Knight just kind of rests on his axe and is like, bruh, no. We're not doing this. And, oh goodness, this is my favorite part. Maybe I should, yeah, I should read this stanza too. Okay, we're going to read this stanza. This is one of my favorite parts. This is the reveal. Alright. Sahadel held him fro, and on his axe rested, settet the shaft upon shore and the sharpe lened, and looked to the lede that on the lande jede. Hol that dochly dreadless dervely verstondes, armed full agles in hert hit him likes. Then he meles murli with a much steven, and with a rikande rurde he tordet her rank side. Bolde borno on this bent, be not so grindel. No mon her unmannerly the misboden habbe. Ne kid but as covenant as kingis courtship. I hit the stroke, and though hit hast, halda the well pied. Ire leste of the remnant of richters alla other. If I deliver had been a buffet paranter, I called the rothlocker half warret, to they half rocht anger. Wirst I manset the morally with a mintone. And roa they wicht, with no rova sora, with richt I they proffered, and the forward that will fest in the first nicht, and though tristely the troth and truly me haldes, all the gaine though me gef as God man shoulder, that other mund for the morne mon I they profit, though kissede me clara weef, they cosses me rachtes, for both the two here I they bede but two bare mintes, both skada. True mon true restore. Then thar mon dreder no waffen. At the thrid though filed thora, and therefore the tap tathe. Okay, so he is sitting, like leaning on his axe, and he's like, okay, Gawain, you did good. You came through with your bargain. You let me strike your neck. You struck mine. Game game one, I guess, you win. Like, we're even now. I'm not sure what the objective of the game really is other than doing it. Like, it's a game like for its own sake. And we did it. Yay, we beat the game. Yay. But there is something that you did lose, which is our wager. So here we get the reveal that he is the lord of the mansion where Gawain was staying. Most people end up guessing that beforehand, but it is a reveal here. It's like, whoa, you're the lord, because he talks about his wife and he talks about the kisses. So that maybe gives a little bit more context why he called him sweet earlier, because that is a term of endearment between romantic partners in the Middle Ages. Usually, it can have other connotations. I will note that, but I mean, this is someone he's made out with six times at this point, at least. So, yeah, it's fun. So we get the reveal. This is the Lord, and he's known all along about the kisses, even though no one said anything about it. He's known. Was the lady telling him? Was this like a whole plan they orchestrated? Maybe. I mean, the game part. He will talk about an orchestration of a plan in a second, but not the kissing game. It's a different one. But he's like, you kept your word, but you flinched the first two times, and you gave me the kisses the first two times. The third time, though, I actually hit you a little bit because you were not truthful the third day. You didn't give me the girdle. That was part of the deal. Like, you had to give me anything you got, but you kept the girdle because it was going to save your life. I mean, it makes sense. But that sort of like small act of not keeping up the bargain, and maybe in like a meta sense, him showing cowardice, at least that's how Gawain is going to see it, earned him getting caught on the neck a little bit, I guess. Which makes you wonder, would the girdle have worked? Like, Gawain says, like, the knight knows that he's wearing the girdle. But yeah, he knows all about it. He says, yeah, no I wealth I kostes an fit kostes alls, an the wooing of me wife I rocht hit myself. Yeah, so that was orchestrated. He rotted himself. This whole sending his wife in to hit on him was the Lord's plan. If you think about the wager, he wanted his wife to try to get Gawain to have relations with her. What does that mean in terms of the bargain? Remember the bargain. It's an interesting plan. One really common reading of this is like the plan is to bring down one of the greatest knights of Camelot by making this whole thing of like proving that he's a coward. Gawain definitely thinks he's a coward in this scenario because of, wearing the girdle and betraying the promise that he made and stuff. But the knights chill with it. In fact, he's not only chill, he invites him to come back with him. He's like, hey, come celebrate New Year's with us. I mean, it's New Year's Day, but like they still celebrate. Christmas lasts until the 6th of January. So he's like, hey, come back with us. You don't have to go right back to Camelot. Come back and hang out with us. My wife and I really liked your vibe. So Gawain says no. Yeah. Nai forsåde, quoth the sick. He's super embarrassed and ashamed about this whole scenario. And so the knight says, Gawain goes into a little bit of strange stuff here. I don't want to skip this part. He says, "Thor wheeles of women bewonnen to sorga, for so what Adam in erda, with on begilet and Solomon with fella Sarah and Samson eftsones Dalida dalt him his werda and douther after what's blended with Barsabe that much ballad tholid." So, we saw you from across the kingdom. Okay, there is someone they saw across the kingdom, but it wasn't Gawain. You're gonna see who it is. But that is that was what I was alluding to a second ago. So Gawain goes on a little, like, women are the cause of all all sorrow rant. This is a really common rant in a lot of medieval literature here. It's like Adam, Eve ruined that situation, Sarah and Solomon, Delilah and Samson. Those are the references he makes here. Dang those women. Even though the Green Knight just said it was all his idea. The whole having his wife try to seduce him was all the Green Knight's idea. So, what do women have to do with anything, Gawain? This is not very cool of you, Sir Gawain. This is not very, that's not chivalrous there. Talking smack about women is seen as not chivalrous. He's really failing the chivalry test here. But the Green Knight, he's like, okay, you can keep the girdle. And Gawain does end up keeping the girdle, but he keeps it as a symbol of his shame. Like, he's like, I'm going to wear this as a token of how much I screwed up. Sorry, that was the dog barking. I don't know. Why are you doing this? I think he's done. Okay. But then we get the extra reveal of the whole plan. Like, what is this whole thing about? The game. What's the game about? What's the point of all this? Like, why did you even do this in the first place, Knight? Also, we get that his name is Sir Bertilac. B-E-R-T-I-L-A-C or K, depending on where in the manuscript you're looking. And also, some people read it as Bertilac with a C because sometimes C's and T's look identical. If you've watched other yesterlores, we've talked about this before. I think Bertilac makes the most sense etymologically. It actually could mean something. It's like bright. If it's bright plus a French word, lac, it could mean bright lake. If it's bright plus lac, like Old English lac, that would be like bright. That would be like a bright game or bright offering. I think that latter one makes sense just because of the context of this is a game. And also lac can mean a lot of other things. It can mean like offering. It can mean any kind of like play in the sense of sword play. It could be an exchange. All of those meanings are there. And it can also have religious connotations too. So I think bright, that element lac, which we no longer have in English anymore, makes the most sense. But bright lake could also work if it's like a Germanic French hybrid. There's lots of debate about the etymology of the name. That's just my 2 cents. But he is the Lord. And what we find out in this stanza, which I'm not going to read, is that this was all... there we get. Bertilac de haut desert. Bertilac of high desert. There's the French bit there. But the spelling with K, I don't know. It could still be French, but because we get cleric here, and that's from Latin. Although it's Latin through Old English, I believe. But so this is his name. Voor nicht of morgen la fai, that in me hoselenges an quintesse of clergy bekraftes wellernen, the mistress of Merlin moni hotaken, for ho hats dalt druli full dere sumtima, with that conable clerk that knowes all your knichtes at hama, morgene the goddess, therefore hit is her nama. Weldes non so hia hautes, that ho ne con make full tama. Okay, we get, it's Morgan Le Fay. So the old lady who's not pretty, in contrast to the lady of the house, who is pretty, that was Morgan Le Fay in disguise, presumably. She's Merlin's mistress, we hear here. That does happen in some versions of the story. She and Merlin are an item at some point in time. There's usually some kind of betrayal that happens there. Sometimes not, because she's not always an antagonist. But here, she is the one who turned him into the Green Knight. Like, she transformed him into, able to get his head chopped off and be fine dude. And this was all a machination of her doing. Why? Let's find out. Yeah, I love that he calls her Morgana the Goddess. She's Morgan the Goddess. Morgana in this story is really interesting to me. What is this all about? Oh yeah, another interpretation that you actually see this translator take is Bernlac. Instead of like a T-I, they see it as like an N. Bernlac could also work. There's again, like I said, it's very debated etymology of this name. I'm still in the Bright game. That's fine. So, like, he's just like, Morgan Le Fay, she's the best, and she did all this, she's awesome. Like, I'm team Morgan Le Fay. I'm with you, brother, most of the time. Depends on the story. Sometimes I'm not with her. But, what's her plan? What's her ploy here? What's Morgana up to? Hawaii'nid me uponthis visa to your winnahala, for to assai the circuidri if hit sothwera, that rennes of the great renown of the ronde table. Hawaii'nid me this wonder, your witness to reva, for to have graved gainur and gartir to dia, with gopning of that ilke gomen that Goslich specked with his head in his honda before the he table. Okay. And we also get reminded that she's Arthur's half-sister, and therefore Morgan Le Fay is Gawain's kind of aunt, because Gawain, remember, is Arthur's nephew. So yeah, there's the whole thing, like, that's your aunt. Family reunion. And again, he's like, come back and hang out with us again. So what was this all about? It was to scare Guinevere. It was to scare Guinevere to death with the image of a man, like a scary ghost guy, holding his head in his hand. Clearly it didn't work, because Guinevere was fine after that whole thing. She was like a little tuckered out at the end of the party. She was like, well, that was a day, and Arthur said the same thing. But the plan didn't exactly work. The other thing was to just sort of more generally bring disgrace. Kind of like I said, that's a typical interpretation. To bring disgrace to Camelot, make the Round Table look bad. And that kind of failed too, because even though Gawain, kind of cheated at the end, he used the girdle, he still kept his end of the bargain. He still got his neck cut, like the game said, like the terms, like the letter, I guess, of the game was that he had to get his neck hit, and he did, so therefore he won. Or not won, but the game is fulfilled. The only game he lost was the kiss game, which that wasn't part of the whole Camelot takedown anyway. Like, no one else needs to hear about that. Gawain is going to tell the Camelot people about it, but that's not, like, part of Morgan's plan. That's his own plan with his wife, I guess. It's interesting. There's a reason this is one of the most heavily debated medieval poems, and it's why I love this poem. There's so much to talk about with this. And then they, let me see if I can find this in it. What's the note here? I just want to see the note. Everyone amends this to Kissin and Kennen, yeah. They call and Kissin and Kennen either other. So yeah, they hug and kiss one last time and say goodbye, because he once again turns him down. He's like, no, I'm not coming back with you to your castle. Happy New Year, bye. So instead, he goes back to Camelot. He rides, and then he gets home, and everyone in Camelot's like, yay! And Arthur and the Queen, Guinevere, they both kiss him. Welcome home, nephew. How'd it go? Glad to see that your head has not been chopped off. Like, he shows them the cut you got, and he tells them the story, all the strange doings. And he sort of makes his claim that he is going to wear this green girdle on his shoulder to, remember his, as a sign of his shame. He says, "This day benda of this blama I bera mi neck." He's going to keep wearing the sash. It's a lot in Toulouse unlocked. Of cowardice and covetous that I half cacht thara. This is the token of untrouth that I am tan inna. So yeah, this is the token of my untruth, my breaking of the promise. Untruth, not untruth as in lie, but untruth as in not staying true to his word. Even though he did stay true to most of the neck-cutting game. He did sort of cheat, but there was nowhere in the terms of the game that said he couldn't have some kind of magical protection. It never said he couldn't. And with medieval bargains, the letter of the law, of the terms, matters a lot more than the spirit. It's always like if you can like weasel your way out on a technicality, and it's valid to do so. The spirit of the law doesn't matter. It's your fault for not making the terms clear. That's how, especially like fae, fairy, elf kind of deals and dwarves and all sorts of stuff in medieval folklore, it always is like that. It's always like the letter of the law. And he followed the letter of the law of that bargain. He showed up, he got his neck cut, check. Like, none of the magic stuff matters, really. But he failed the letter of the law when it came to giving the Lord everything that he received. You could say in a vague sense he did give the Lord what he received. He got a lot of affection from the Lord's lady, and he gave that to Gawain, or he gave that to the Lord even more so than what he got, honestly. His kisses to the Lord were a lot more passionate than the chaste, courtly kisses that he had with the lady. So it's almost like he made up for it, but no. The letter of the law was he has to give everything that he got to the Lord, and he failed that because he kept the girdle. That's sort of what matters in this situation. That's not what we get in the text that doesn't say that, but that is sort of context of how medieval contracts, especially like magical ones in stories, tend to go. If you've ever read any version of Rumpelstiltskin, this would probably be familiar. He really gets people in technicalities a lot in those stories. So we get Sir Gawain proclaiming that he is going to keep this on as a token of his shame, but the king comfortes the knicht, and alle the course als. Lagen lode therat, that longen to the table, ucheborna of the brotherhead a bodrik should have, a bende, a belev, him a bota of a bricht grena. And that for saka of that sigge, in swete to were, for that was accorded the renon of the round table. And he honoured that hit had evermore after, and it is brevet in the best boka of romance. Thus in Arthurus die, this anter betida, the Brutus bocus, thereof beres witness. Siden Brutus de bolde borne boged hither first, after the sige ante assault was Caesar de Troja, I wisse, mon anterest hede beforne, hit fallen such erthes, no thought her the crown of thorne, he bring us to his bliss. Amen. As we usually see at the end of medieval poems, we have amen at the end. So, we end with, I'll just say that part, it's just invoking God. And we get an echo of how the story started, too, with like reference to Brutus and Troy, how Britain was mythologically founded by Brutus, who was a survivor of the Trojan War. That's a common belief in this time period, that that's how England started. It's not accurate to what we know now, but it is mythologically very common to see in this sort of Middle English period of writing. That Britain gets its name from Brutus. That's not where the word Britain comes from, but that was their sort of folk etymology where the name Britain came from. And Arthur's like the best king since Brutus is the idea. So Gawain's like, this is going to be a token of my cowardice, this sash, and the king and the knights are like, no, we're gonna support you. Where is it? Yeah, the king comfortes the knight. They comfort him. All the knights in solidarity decide that they're going to wear green sashes to honor the bravery of Sir Gawain for being the one to take up this task in the first place. Because no one else stood up and grabbed the axe and offered to do it. So they're all being very supportive, nice Knights of Camelot. And the king is being nice and supportive of his nephew. And then the poet is just kind of like, yeah, and this is one of those greatest stories of the Round Table, as it's witnessed in other sources. We don't actually have another version of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, actually, but according to this poet, there were other versions of this story. So in his canon, in this poet's version of things, from then on, the Knights of the Round Table can be identified by their green sashes, in solidarity with Britain. Okay, cool. That's a cool story. All right. So that is the end of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I finished before the end of Yesterlore. Yay! Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I don't have a lot of time to say my thoughts. I'm interested to see what people have to say in the comments below. Even if this is like a year from the date that this is airing, I'm going to be looking back at comments, so don't worry if you feel like you're too late. So, thoughts. I definitely recommend reading the parts that we skipped because they are interesting. But this is a baffling poem to historians, people who study medieval literature. It's just a baffling poem. Like, a lot of what happens is like, why? That's a lot of medieval poetry. It's like, why? But this is like extra why. Like, the plan that Morgan has is very convoluted. She wants to scare Guinevere to death by transforming a lord into a green knight and orchestrating a game where he has to get his head chopped off by a knight so that him picking up his head scares Guinevere. And that plan instantly failed. Like, it failed within some of the first stanzas when it happened. But the game that is predicated on that lasts for the rest of the poem. And we have a game within a game in this poem, because we also have the game in the manor, in the Lord's Hall, which is also kind of baffling. Like, what is his goal there? Like, it's to tarnish the name of Camelot, but he doesn't seem to have a lot of animosity for Camelot. Like, why is he going along with this idea? If the goal is to tarnish Sir Gawain's name, he clearly doesn't have any ill will against Gawain. At least by the end of the story, he's like, you're cool, come back to have New Year's dinner with us and hang out and spend more time with us. He seems to like Gawain, genuinely. Big Nasty Trick said, we saw you from across the kingdom and we really liked your vibe. So we orchestrated a game in which I tried to get my wife to sleep with you so that in turn you would have to sleep with me. That's the implication there. It's a very convoluted way to ask someone to hook up with you, I think. But it's like, what place does that have in the wider story? Why is it there? What's going on? It's all very interesting and strange. But there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot that people have written about it. Big Nasty Trick says, fellas, is it gay to concoct a convoluted game just to procure a hookup? Honestly, people talk about triangulation of desire a lot. This is like triangulation of desire in its purest form and most literal form, like it's actually happening, not even just in your mind, but like in reality. The desire is being triangulated on purpose by you. It's very interesting. And it's also something that's not the most written about thing. In recent years, more people have like applied queer theory to this poem and written about sort of the subtext there. It's been pretty obvious for a lot of history, and for pretty obvious reasons, a lot of academics have like kind of glossed over and been like, we're not going to talk about that. Let's talk about the symbolism of the color green, which is another really interesting thing to talk about. This is the Green Knight we're talking about. He's made green by enchantment, but there's also a very common motif in medieval art called the Green Man. It's probably not related to this story at all. I don't think it is, at least. But it is a really common motif. Like, what does green mean? Like, why green and not something else? We have a long description at the beginning of Fit 2, which is like sort of adventure, Gawain's adventure to go to his destination section, of like a description of each of the seasons, and there's a lot of like vivid, beautiful imagery of the seasons, and green comes up there. But I don't know, it's just very interesting because green is the color of the girdle as well. What could green have meant? We have our own associations with the color green, of course, nowadays. How many of those would have been the same? We have a lot of treatises on like color symbolism, or at least like a lot of things that make clear what the color symbolism was, but still it's very interesting to debate as well. So a lot of ink has been spilled on unpacking the symbolism here, but the sort of angle of like, why are they trying to hook up with Gawain so bad? Like, why do they want that so bad? Is not something that's been talked about until like relatively recently. Like, more academic stuff has been written about it, because it seems to be a major element. Like, Fit 3 is the longest section of this poem, and it's the one where he's in the house and this wager's going on that isn't the wager that the whole story is about, which is the axe one. There's like another wager inside that's given so much more ink by this poet. So it's very interesting, all of it. There's a reason this is like maybe my favorite Middle English poem. Not my favorite to read exactly, because there are shorter ones that I just like to pick up and read sometimes. But it's my favorite in terms of like what it's about, what happens, the vivid clothing description. As much as I like to joke about it, it is fun to read vivid clothing description in Middle English. Yeah, so I just really enjoyed sharing this poem with you all. Thank you, everyone who's been here. Thank you for the people in the future watching this. Thank you for anyone who's been following up with yesterlore. It's been almost a year since it's been about a year since I started yesterlore, and I've really enjoyed it. And I am going to be taking a break, like I said at the beginning of this hour, but I have really enjoyed it, and thank you, everyone, for watching. I will see some of you, maybe, in tomorrow's stream. Last week's project stream had a big failure where basically my phone was recording for the first 4 minutes of the stream. The remainder of the 2-hour planned stream was not recorded, but my phone still said I was live the entire time, so I had no way of knowing it wasn't being recorded at all. So I'm going to hopefully prevent that somehow this time. I think it was just my internet was weird and it cut me off very early on and it never reconnected or something. So I'm just going to continually check that I'm online. Yeah, so tomorrow we're going to do another journal with me. That's what I did last week, but it didn't work out. So we're doing it again, journal with me, number 2, take 2. And it's also a Q&A. So there are questions that I've been given by some people, and I'm still open to more questions if you are quick and you can leave them tonight after I put this on YouTube. Or if you have a way to contact me other than YouTube. I think I do have some contact information somewhere. I want more questions, because I have some questions that I answered them. Those weren't recorded, so I'm going to re-answer them, but probably more quickly than I did last time, because I've answered them already. And I will ramble less the second time I answer a question, usually. So if you have more questions, I'm open to them. Big Nasty Tress says, thank you for doing yesterlore. It's very fun to watch. Thank you. I've really enjoyed doing it. It's sad I have to take a break, but there's still going to be more content coming out. I'm probably going to do more project streams. There's going to be continued journal with me. There's going to be more conlang stuff. I'm going to get back into doing more of that again, and some more of my sort of translation projects, and even some webby stuff that I've been doing. There's a project I've been working on for a while that involves my website, and I might start streaming some of that, so that might be fun as well. Thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your night, or whatever time zone you're in. Thank you, and farewell.